Hello everyone, thank you for joining us this evening. If you are here with us joining in for MoneyOwl's last webinar for the year, I'd like to invite you to drop us a comment, say hello to all of us who are here together. Hi Wenxuan for joining us tonight for this webinar. If you're also, if anyone else is also tuning in, feel free to drop in a comment, say hi to us, and so that I don't feel so lonely here being the only person in this room. All right, so hello everyone, and thank you for joining us in MoneyOwl's last webinar for the year. My name is Lena. Hello, hi, I am Theo, and I will be the speaker for today's webinar. While I'm not at this webinar or stressing over preparing one, my day job usually consists of me sitting behind a desk supporting the various teams as a subject matter expert in the areas of CPF and retirement planning. Well, 2020 has been a really eventful year for all of us, isn't it? With COVID-19, the circuit breakers, market downturns, GE 2020, and just recently, as earlier this week, the conclusion of the US election, to name a few. However, if there is anything for us to give thanks for, I hope that COVID-19 has been a good time for you, give you the opportunity for self-reflection, self-improvement, and also time spent with your family and loved ones. Hi, Janice. At MoneyOwl, rain or shine, we continue to work hard to help everyday Singaporeans make wise decisions with their money. And I am glad that because of COVID, webinars like this has become a lot more accessible to you, for you to be able to improve your personal finance from the comforts of your own home. I hope that all of you who are tuning in are comfortably sitting at home, enjoying your dinner. Now, in today's webinar, I'll be sharing about a retirement planning scheme that is available to everyone, the Supplementary Retirement Scheme, or SRS for short. This is a scheme that's not often talked about, and I hope to be able to address them today. Now, before I go into that, a few logistics. Now, at any point of time, feel free to drop in your questions, comments, or reactions into the comment box. It would certainly encourage me if I can see all of you participating actively together with me, and I will try to address your questions pertaining to anything I've said that requires clarification as I go along. Otherwise, my colleagues who are also on standby will be helping to address all the other questions you may have. If we are not able to answer them during this webinar, don't worry, you will certainly get them answered within these 1 to 2 days. Now, that's the great thing about having a webinar like this. You can say as many things you want, ask as many things as you want, and you won't interrupt the speaker at all. Okay, so if this is your first time tuning in to a MoneyOwl webinar, you may not be very familiar with us, so let me just do a quick introduction. MoneyOwl is Singapore's only comprehensive independent financial advisory firm with fully salaried advisors. We help our clients take a holistic and integrated view of their financial situation through the lens of their insurance, investment, estate, and retirement planning. All this integrated while incorporating national schemes like CPF. When you plan with MoneyOwl, you are served by the best of both worlds, a team of trusted human advisors and a slew of online tools and services that you can access any time of the day at your own pace. What our clients really like about us is that our advisors are fully salaried, so they are always assured that any advice provided is always in their best interest. Why do we do this? Simply because our parent companies, NTUC Enterprise and Provident Private Limited, have a heritage of many years of doing good and doing right. MoneyOwl is run by a team of passionate people like myself who believe that there is a better way to make financial advice accessible to everyone. So who is this talk for today? I'll be identifying 3 specific groups of people. As I was preparing for this webinar, I realized that while talking about SRS, the everyday thing for me, it may not be the same for everyone. For example, just earlier this week, I was just spamming my brother and telling him to go and contribute to his SRS so that he can enjoy tax benefits. I was really excited to share with him the MoneyOwl promotion that we were having. And after all the excitement and explaining everything to him for about 10 minutes, he went with, so what is SRS? So I was dumbfounded. My brother is older than me, he earns way more than me, he doesn't have children. So I thought that of all the people who should know what SRS is, it would be him. Unfortunately, it's not the case. So I'm not going to assume that everyone understands that as well. So you might have heard about this scheme because everyone is just talking about it, and it's SRS season. The banks, the robo-advisors, advertisements that pop up in your screen, even your insurance agent might be asking you to do something with your SRS. However, if you were to be honest with yourself, you don't really know what it is about. Now, if you fall within this category, I would like you to type T into the comment box now. Okay, the reason why I'm asking for you to do this is to participate together with me in this webinar, and also for me to be able to know what are your concerns so that I can structure my presentation accordingly. All right, so if you have heard of SRS, but you're not sure of the terms and conditions and you haven't contributed into it before, please type T into the comments box. Now, the second group of persons who might be attending today's webinar are those who have been contributing regularly to SRS to enjoy the tax benefits. You may have checked your SRS account before attending this webinar, and you found to your horror that other than all the money that you've been contributing, it hasn't grown one bit. And that is no surprise, because actually the money in your SRS doesn't really earn anything if you don't invest it. But don't worry, according to statistics from the Ministry of Finance, you are just like one of the other 51,799 SRS account holders in Singapore. Okay, so if and it is my hope that after today you will not be. So if you're attending this webinar to learn more about what you can do with your SRS savings because you've been contributing to it, please type A into the comment box. Okay, so type A into the comment box if you have been contributing already, but you want to learn more about what you can do with it. How you can make your money grow faster for you. All right, thank you very much. I've seen quite a few of you who have already put in T and also A. All right, now this third group of persons that I will be addressing today are those who are reaching retirement age. You have this nest egg that is sitting in your retirement account, in your SRS account, and you're thinking about how to go about using to fund it for your retirement, how you should reduce your taxes as much as possible when it comes to withdrawing out. And you might be wondering if you can, or even if you should continue to invest in your retirement years, or whether you should just hold everything in cash. Now, if this is you, I'd like you to type X into the comments box. Okay, so you are approaching retirement and you want to understand how SRS can help you. Then if that's the case, please type X into the comments box. Okay, I see T's and A's here. All right. So thank you very much for participating. And as we go along, I'll be addressing some of these concerns that I have pointed out. Okay, X coming in as well. All right. So what is SRS? SRS is a voluntary savings scheme that is operated by the private sector. Okay, while it is often used to complement your CPF savings, this scheme is not administered by CPF board. Okay, the whole intent of this scheme is really to incentivize you to set aside savings for your retirement by giving you some tax benefits. The SRS scheme is eligible for Singaporeans, permanent residents, and foreigners. To qualify, you need to be at least 18 years old, and you are not an undischarged bankrupt. As much as this is purely a voluntary scheme, you can choose to contribute however much you want any time of the year up to the annual contribution cap, which I'll cover in the next slide. The monies in your SRS behaves like cash, so it can be used to purchase various insurance or investment instruments to make your savings work harder for you. And lastly, SRS contributions provide you with tax relief. In other words, for every dollar that you contribute, you actually get $1 of tax relief to reduce your taxable income, which in turn then reduces the amount of tax that you have to pay. So here are 5 key numbers you need to remember when it comes to SRS. If you're able to remember these 5 key numbers, you are more or less have mastered SRS by the end of this webinar. Number 1, the annual contribution cap refers to the maximum amount that you can contribute to your SRS in any year. For Singapore citizens and permanent residents, this cap is set at 15,300 and 35,700 for foreigners. Now, foreigners can contribute more to SRS on the account that they don't enjoy tax relief from CPF. Now, it's very important that you remember these limits because according to the SRS operators, they will refund you the whole amount back to you if you exceed the cap. All right, so if you're not aware that they have refunded this amount to you, you might actually end up missing the year-end closing date to be eligible for tax relief next year. So do remember these numbers and don't contribute more than that into your SRS account. The second thing that you need to take note of is that the maximum tax relief that anyone can get from for all kinds of tax relief is $80,000. Now, this is the sum of all tax reliefs that you get from working, from supporting your spouse, your children, grandparents, parents, contributing to CPF, or serving NS, etc. Okay, so for most people, hitting 80,000 per year is actually quite hard unless you are a high-income working mother with 3 or more children. If you belong to this particular kind of profile, right, you might be useful for you to do a bit of sums before contributing to SRS, as you might not be able to benefit from the tax relief that it provides. Now remember that SRS contributions cannot be refunded even if you realize, alamak, I cannot benefit from the tax relief. You cannot ask the bank to refund this money to you, although you may be able to withdraw them subject to some penalties. Number 3, as monies that are contributed to SRS is meant for your retirement, as the name of the scheme suggests, there are some withdrawal restrictions. You can withdraw from your SRS penalty-free if you do so after the statutory retirement age prevailing when you contributed your first dollar to the account. Okay, that sounds very mouthful. So let me give you an example. This year, the statutory retirement age is 62 years old. So if you make your first SRS contribution, just $1 will do this year, you will be able to withdraw from your SRS account penalty-free when you reach 62 years old. Okay, but the thing to note is that 62 years old is not going to be the retirement age for long. At the National Day Rally in 2019, PMD actually announced that the retirement age will be gradually increased to 63 years old in 2022 and 65 years old by 2030. So the later you open your SRS account and make that first contribution, the later you can withdraw from your SRS penalty-free. Okay, so I've mentioned quite a few times about this penalty. So what exactly is this all about? If you withdraw from your SRS account before the statutory retirement age, currently at 62 years old, you will have to pay a 5% penalty charge, as well as have 100% of the amount withdrawn taxed, as opposed to only 50% of it being taxed if you withdraw it after the retirement age. While there is a penalty, the good thing is that the scheme still gives you some liquidity. And for those of you who might suddenly face with some dire circumstances or chance upon investment opportunities, you might find you may not mind paying these penalties in order to access the money. Lastly, the SRS account operates like a normal bank account, which only pays you 0.05% interest. Don't leave your money in SRS to do nothing. Okay, it is not worth locking your money up for the next 20 to 30 years just to earn 0.05% interest. Okay, it is very important that you consider using this money to invest or to grow your savings. Okay, the other thing to take note of is that currently all fees are waived for operating your SRS account. So what this means is that even if you just use a $1 to lock in your statutory retirement age, the bank is not going to charge you for any fall below balance fees. Okay, in fact, last year, back in 2019, when PMD was going to do his announcement, we roughly knew that it was going to be about the retirement age. So what we really did, what I did was to just get all my colleagues to quickly go open their SRS account, just put $1 inside. I think during that time, a lot of people started open SRS accounts. So Ariel, you have asked the question, as a mother who already got enough tax relief, should I still open an SRS account? I think you can still open an SRS account, just put in that $1 to lock in that retirement age, so that at any point of time you may have not enough tax relief, because at some point your children are going to grow older, right? And then you will not getting the working mother's tax relief anymore. You can still then use the SRS to help you save on taxes. All right. So next slide. All right. So now I want to do this simple exercise with all of you over the next few minutes, get you all to participate a bit, to estimate how much tax savings you can get from contributing to SRS. I always find that when I talk about percentages, I feel that I'm losing people. So I like to use absolute numbers. Okay, how do we do this? The first thing I want you all to do is to look at this table that I have it here. It is the progressive tax rates that the progressive income tax rate structure for Singaporeans, Singapore tax residents. Okay, I want you to find out what your marginal tax rate is. So how do you do this? If, for example, you earn $6,000 a month, okay, that means your annual income would be somewhere around the 72K range. This is where you belong to. Your marginal tax rate is 7%. Okay. For example, if you earn, say, $10,000 per month, then your annual income falls within roughly about the 120,000 range, in which case your marginal tax rate is 15%, and so on and so forth. As you can read through this entire table. Just to clarify, by no means this 15% means that the 15% is applied on all your income, for all your taxable income. This is your marginal tax rate. That means for every other dollar that you earn more, how much tax are you going to pay on that? So now that you know what your percentage is, I want you to multiply it against your contribution cap. If you are a citizen or permanent resident, that is 15,300. If you are a foreigner, it is 35,700. The number then you get will be the maximum tax savings you can get from contributing to SRS in any 1 year. So for example, this if you fall within the 7% tax bracket, the savings, if you take 7% times 15,300, the amount of savings that you can get potentially is $1,071. If you fall within the 15% tax bracket, the amount of savings you can get is $2,295. So obviously, the higher you are in terms of your marginal tax rate, or the higher you can, or the more that you can contribute to your SRS, the more savings you can get. I hope that after working through these numbers, it gives you greater motivation to go and open an SRS account after right after this webinar. Okay, you can do so with any of the 3 local banks, and I'll share with you some goodies later. And also, you can just put in $1 if you just want to lock in your retirement age. But of course, if you're going to go through the whole hassle of doing that, I hope you put in more than $1 lah. Okay, all right. Let me further illustrate how this whole tax savings works using this example. Now, assuming that's Mr. Tan. Okay, Mr. Tan is this guy here who has an annual total annual income of about 120,000, and this includes all his wages, his bonuses, etc. After deducting his various tax reliefs of about 30,000, his taxable income works out to be 90K. And without doing anything else, the tax payable for him is $4,500. Now, let's say he, after listening to this webinar, decides to do a SRS top-up of 15,300. So what this does is that it reduces his taxable income to 74,700. And with this taxable income, his tax payable is now 2,980. So by doing this, by doing this contribution, he effectively saves about $1,500 next year when he pays his tax. Okay, if Mr. Tan is really very keen to reduce his tax further, he also can consider topping up to his and his loved ones' CPF special or retirement account to get a maximum tax relief of 14,000. So with if he also does this CPF top up under the retirement sum topping up scheme, so if he does this CPF top up as well, his taxable income is further reduced to $60,000. So with $60,000 of taxable income, his total tax payable next year is only $2,000. So giving him a tax saving of $2,500. So Mrs. Tan has heard about how much her husband is saving, and she says that, hey, I want to do the same thing. However, in her situation, because she's actually a working mom, and she has enough, and she actually has a sizable tax relief from all her working mother-child relief. Tax relief is actually about 70K compared to her husband. So even though she is able to contribute, even though she does the SRS top-ups and the RS and the CPF top-ups, you realize that no matter what, the total amount that she can actually claim for, the tax relief that she can claim for, is still capped at 80,000 in any year. So her taxable income is still becomes 40K lah. No matter what, she's still in a better position than her husband, but she's not able to fully benefit from a full contribution to SRS and CPF top-ups. All right, so when you look at this example, and assuming that you have already very high tax relief, this may actually beg this next question. If I have only an option to choose from contributing to SRS or topping up to my CPF, which is the better one? So here are some meaningful differences between the two schemes for your consideration. So SRS provides greater flexibility in which you can withdraw from this account at any point of time if you don't mind paying some of the penalties. However, CPF can only be withdrawn at the very earliest from age 55 years old and subject to you being able to set aside the basic retirement sum or the full retirement sum. RSTU is the retirement sum topping up scheme. Okay, so this is a scheme that is available by CPF board, which allows you to do a top up to your special or retirement account to get some tax relief. All right, so if you are topping up to your CPF, do take note that the earliest that you can withdraw is also age 55, and you must be able to set aside the required retirement sum first. However, if you're doing this topping up or doing this top up after you have turned 55 years old, then you won't be able to withdraw in a lump sum. Okay, any top-ups that go in after 55 years old is regarded as using it to join CPF Life and will only be paid out to you through monthly income. Number two, money in your SRS earns almost nothing, the 0.05%, which I mentioned earlier. In comparison, the monies that you keep in when you top up to your CPF earns risk-free interest of up to 5 to 6% per annum, risk-free. So if you belong to the category of persons who don't like to take risks with your savings, or you have no intentions to do any investments at all, now SRS, you may want to just give up some of this flexibility that comes with SRS so that you can earn this higher interest. Number three, because SRS, like I mentioned, works like cash, it can be used to invest in a variety of instruments for higher returns. These instruments can include stocks, unit trusts, ETFs, REITs, etc. You cannot do that with your CPF special account. Whatever you can invest with your CPF special account monies, it must be a CPFIS special account approved product, which is usually very stringent. And you probably shouldn't also invest your CPF special account because this monies is, this kind of returns is already quite attractive. So as you can see, it really depends on whether you should do a SRS top-up or CPF top-up. Really depends on several factors like your willingness to take risks and your need for flexibility to determine which is the better route for you. However, if you are of higher income and you don't mind doing both top-ups and to maximize the amount of tax savings you can get, you may want to consider both doing top-ups under both as well, so that you can maximize your tax savings as well as grow your retirement savings faster. No money in SRS, thanks. Okay, maybe Lena, I will address your question later. Slide 8, where's slide 8? Previous slides. This one. Okay, anyway, whatever that, because this is a Facebook live recording, whatever that I present will be available on Facebook right after I have, after my presentation. So you can always feel free to come back and look at it later lah. Okay, so I'll move on. All right, so this covers my introduction to the key features of SRS. Remember, SRS helps you to save on taxes. You pay now. This means that you get more savings to spend, to save, or to invest. Okay, unless of course you're very sympathetic with the government that they have spent a lot this year on the various budgets, and you still want to do your part for nation building, then by all means, I'm not going to stop you there. All right, so that ends my section one. I'll move on to my segment 2, which is to address the second group of persons who wants to know more about how you can use your SRS savings to grow, how you can better grow your SRS savings. Before we do that, let's have a look at some statistics provided by Ministry of Finance. Okay, this is according to them, as at December 2019, there are altogether 185,000 SRS account holders, with an average balance of about 58,000. And most of them are Singaporeans and permanent residents, and more than half are aged between 36 to 55 years old, which I believe would form the majority of the people who are attending today's webinar as well. Okay, but the more interesting bit of information is where your SRS monies are being held. Okay, unfortunately, despite all the education that is out there that is being done around SRS, a lot of almost 1/3, 28% of the account monies are actually still being left in the SRS accounts, just earning cash, just earning 0.05%. Yeah, this is followed by putting the money into insurance products such as retirement income plans, endowments, or followed by investments in shares, REITs, unit trust, etc. All right. So how do you make sense of all these different options that are available to you? Here's a simple framework to help you make sense of these options. I say simple because there's usually more dimensions to this, but this is basically just to group them in a very simple framework. And this is based on two scales. The scale of your risk appetite, that means how willing are you to take risks? And if let's say you invest in the stock markets and you see the market moving up and down, are you the kind who can still sleep soundly at night? Yeah, so that is your risk appetite. Okay, and on the x-axis is where we talk about years to retirement, which means how many more years you have left before you reach 62 years old, where you can withdraw the money. So if you are already approaching retirement or already in retirement and you have a low appetite for risk, you may want to consider, rather than just giving the money as cash, earning 0.05%, you may want to consider putting your SRS in cash equivalents like time deposits or cash management solutions, your Singapore Saving Bonds, SSBs, or Singapore Government Securities, SGS. Okay. However, in current low interest rates environment, most of these cash-like instruments will yield only about 1% per annum. At this rate, and for the lack of a longer time horizon, whatever you're doing at this point is really more for preservation, and this is certainly not a strategy for younger people. How is it your side? There are some who can do that. Cash equivalents, okay. So by what I mentioned here is in terms of cash equivalents, and I'll share with you, actually at MoneyOwl, HSU, actually at MoneyOwl, we do have a cash equivalent kind of solution that you can put your SRS monies in, and the underlying of these instruments are actually time deposits. So while maybe, I'm not very sure about whether the banks don't accept SRS for fixed deposits anymore, but if you are looking for a fixed deposit-like product and you want to put your SRS monies in it, MoneyOwl does have a suitable cash management solution that fits that criteria. You can actually check with my colleagues more later about this product. All right. So second, on the lower quadrant, if you have time on hand, maybe looking at least 5 years or more, and you still prefer the lower risk end of things, you can consider using your SRS savings to buy a retirement income plan to provide you with a stream of income or over a fixed period of time, or even an annuity for life. The payouts that come from these retirement income plans include both guaranteed portions, so it's actually pretty attractive for people who don't want to take risks, as well as a non-guaranteed portion. You can use this to help you supplement the payouts that you get from CPF Life. The rate of returns for these products, as the nature of these products are lower risk and they are guarantees, they fall within the 3 to 4% depending on the performance of the underlying participating fund in the insurance company. However, having said this, for those of you who are within this group and you still have time, I would advise you to consider a third dimension. Do you actually need higher returns to achieve your desired retirement goal? Okay, because if so, then while you have the time to do so, you may want to consider taking on some calculated investment risk to earn higher returns. Now, that there is this perennial issue that is faced by most of us, and it's called limited resources. Whatever income that we have is often a tug of war between the present needs that we have to pay and living well today, as well as trying to save and set aside enough for our future. So let's say we decide that we want to allocate more to our present needs. We often leave less for the future. And if we don't try to actually make these savings work harder for us, we may also end up with insufficient returns. Yeah. and then not being able, which may in the end also result in you not being able to achieve your goals. So not being able to achieve your goals is actually a risk in itself. So the decision that you have to make then is between the lesser of two unpleasant outcomes. But the good news is that investing doesn't have to be an unpleasant affair as long as you do it right. And in the subsequent part of my presentation, I'll be sharing with you how you can invest in a wise way that doesn't require you to go through this unpleasantness. Okay. So moving on to the upper right hand quadrant. If you are willing to take some risk on your monies, it certainly gives you more options on how to grow your SRS. These include the likes of shares in company, REITs, ETFs, which are traded on the stock exchange, or unit trust, which you can buy from an investment platform or financial advisor like MoneyOwl. The range of returns that you can get depends on your portfolio mix, the underlying cost of investments, and whether you are staying invested in the long run. So I'll share more later in terms of how you can actually invest wisely to earn these returns reliably. So do take note that any dividends or any interest that you get through your shares or even through your bonds or your funds accumulate tax-free in your SRS account. But the moment you withdraw them, they form part of your taxable income. So what kind of instruments can go onto the top left-hand quadrant? Okay, this is for people who have high risk appetite but unfortunately don't have really much time. You can also use your SRS monies to invest in all these same instruments. And in fact, at MoneyOwl, we do believe that even those in retirement can, and some of you should, continue to invest to fund your retirement so as not to outlive your savings. I think Singapore is known very famously for having one of its longest life expectancy, currently at 84.9 years. So assuming you choose a retirement age of 60 or 65 years old, what this means is that you're preparing for a retirement that is at least 20 to 25 years. And during this period of time, because of inflation, your money is not just, if you keep your money in cash, if you're losing the value on it, and you may end up at some point of time outliving your savings. So having to invest at least to keep your value of your money and to counter the effects of inflation is still important. However, if you are going for a quick wins through speculation or market timing at this point of time, I will caution against you doing that. Because as you approach retirement, you actually no longer have the time or the income to make good of these investment losses. Should you invest, I think you should be investing with the mind of creating a stream of income for yourself, either through a decumulation strategy or or drawing a passive income through your underlying investments. So now you may have noticed that I've colored some of these instruments in darker green color. These are the products that are available with MoneyOwl through our cash management solutions, which I mentioned earlier, insurance and investment products as well. As a one-stop financial advisory firm, we understand that there is no one-size-fits-all solution for all our clients. But we do our best to encourage clients to invest because it is really the one way to get the most sufficient returns for meet your goals. We do also know that some people just cannot invest and they're better off with a guaranteed product like insurance or cash-like instruments, or even a mixture of all three. So if you're keen to learn more about the solutions we have, like I've mentioned to Mr. Yo, you can drop us an inquiry right after this webinar, and we will arrange for one of our client advisors to get in touch with you, and they will help you identify the most suitable solution. All right. How do I know if I still have time to invest in products for high return? That's a very good question, Jennifer, which I will address in towards the end of my presentation. All right. Okay, so let me just move on to the next slide. Okay, to help you better appreciate how the different rates of returns can affect your SRS savings or even your cash for that matter, I've prepared this chart. So this chart is a bit unusual, a bit different from what you usually see, because it shows you the inflation-adjusted growth of wealth. Okay, what this means is that it's actually showing you what your $10,000 will look like 30 years down the road after adjusting for inflation. This inflation I use is a 2%, which is Singapore's long-term inflation rate. So if you invest your SRS savings in market-based instrument, like unit trust, ETF share, etc., which gives you an average return of about maybe 6 to 7%. You can expect a more than threefold increase in your savings after 30 years, and this is after even adjusting for inflation. For cash and insurance, you're certainly better off than not doing anything, close to 1.5 to 2 times better. But a large part of your wealth accumulation would still be very dependent on how much you put in, because it is not being compounded by a higher return. So definitely to catch up, you probably need to put in even more. Now, the most unfortunate scenario is that, and this is the one that you need to avoid, is leaving the savings in your bank doing nothing at all. Okay, because as you can see from this chart here, after adjusting for inflation, you're actually becoming poorer by the minute. A $10,000 today would be worth less than half, about half in 30 years' time. Okay, so I really hope that if you're one of the 51,800 SRS account holders who have left your SRS monies untouched all these years, I hope this encourages you to take action today. Okay, so to wrap up this second segment of my presentation, let me just share with you 4 quick tips on how you should approach investing. At MoneyOwl, we believe very much in helping our clients have a peace of mind, knowing that their financial wellness is in good hands. While we could have opted to go for maximizing of returns, and that makes it very attractive to gain new clients, as an NTUC social enterprise, our focus is really on sufficiency and reliability of returns. That is what we mean by this, is that giving you the returns that you need to achieve your goals, and to do it as reliably as possible. And we do this based on decades of evidence. So what's the first principle or first quick tip that you should definitely adopt when it comes to investing, is to diversify across as many countries, sectors, and over as many companies as possible. I think you've heard this many times before. Don't put all your eggs in the same basket. Not only does this help you reduce the risk of losing when one particular share or security goes south, you are also increasing the odds of capturing returns when one market does better than the others. Let me illustrate with some historical data. Okay, I know some people, when they see charts, they zone out, okay? But these are very simple charts that I'll be sharing with you. So what you can see here is that investing in US has been very popular and trendy over the last couple of years, as it has seen one of the longest periods of outperformance. So if you have actually invested in the US index 3 years ago, let me just bring my pointer out so it's easier for you to see. Okay, if you have invested in the US index, in the US markets about 3 years ago, okay, your $10,000 would have grown to almost 13,062 in just 3 years. What this means is that you're actually sitting on about 30% of gains, even after going through COVID-19. Compare this with the performance of all the rest of the world, as well as Asia. Okay, when you hear news like this, it may be tempting for you to say that, oh, good lah, if that's the case, let me just put all my investments in US stocks. However, I want you to know that, did you know that not too long ago, right out of the 2000.com bubble, US actually experienced one of its longest period of stagnant growth, while Asia had thrived. If you had invested 10,000 back in year 2000 into the US stock markets, in the US broad market, right? Your $10,000 will still be worth about $10,000 after 13 years. And you will have missed out the entire growth that is happening in Asia. Let me give you another example. So today, everyone is talking about technology stocks because it's like the in thing. Is growing. It has spectacular growth, and it's something that's very familiar with all of us. Okay, everyone's talking about technology stocks, the likes of Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Alphabet, Microsoft, etc. And here's a chart that shows how spectacular their returns have been, following the yellow line, compared to the rest of the markets and rest of the sectors, especially for energy. Likewise, this wasn't always the case either. After the dot-com bubble back in year 2000, right, the tech sector took a very heavy beating and it actually remained stagnant for a long periods of time compared to the same energy sector that actually was doing very well back then. So what does this tell us? Markets move in cycles. Winners today can easily be the losers of tomorrow, and it's simply just too stressful to keep following the trends to figure out who's going to be in or who's going to be out, simply because we have better things to do than just monitor the stock market every day. Even professional fund managers who look at this data all the time don't always get it right. According to statistics, over a 15-year period, only 8% of active fund managers have been able to outperform their market benchmarks. What's more, active management often results in higher management costs, and this translates to lower returns to you as a client. Not only, and it also adds stress to you, and this does nothing to give you a better peace of mind. So as such, when choosing a fund manager or even a robo-advisor to work with, or even if you're a DIY investor, go for market-based returns rather than chasing recent performances, switching in and out of markets depending on what's most popular. I know this form of investment is probably not going to appeal to everyone because all of us want to believe that we can do better than the average Joe. I have a friend who trades very regularly on STI, and he has made really decent profits over this COVID period. I cannot deny that he has done well because his profits are real. But the thing is, the amount of stress that he has faced is also very real. Whether he is happy or very sad on any particular day is very dependent on how his stocks are doing. Most of the times he's upset because he always ends up selling before the next market high or buying before the next market low. I really think investing shouldn't be an emotional roller coaster ride like this. Rather than working hard to beat the market by trying to guess which sector or which country is doing well, in fact, all you need to do is just to own it all. Diversify broadly across many markets and thousands of securities so that you are more likely to capture the returns and lower your risk. As shown in this chart, ignoring the noise that comes from the news that you hear about which sector is good, which country is good, buying the whole market places you right smack in the middle of the blue color line, and even at the end of the day, coming on top even. Our MoneyOwl portfolios follow this principle very strongly, and we help you to invest globally in a portfolio of more than 8,000 companies all around the world. These companies include the big names that you're familiar with and many, many more, of course. In other words, when you spend and consume on any when you go on products, like when you go and watch Netflix at home, or you use your Microsoft Office software or daily computing, when you eat at McDonald's, when you play mobile games by Tencent, or if you buy Apple phones or your next Samsung phone, or use personal care products by Johnson & Johnson's, you're actually helping to grow your investments too. Now, talking about mobile games, recently I found out to my horror that my son had racked up close to $1,000 of expenses buying gems for his mobile games. His unfortunate mother was really upset when I found out. So what I did was to send him off to work to pay me back the money, and he's grudgingly doing it right now. Now, thinking about it, maybe I shouldn't have been so harsh on my son, since that actually whatever he's spending off is indirectly improving my investments as well. Okay, yes, Lighting, I saw your question with regards to implications on 10 years of drawdown. I will try to address your questions later at the third part of our segment. All right, thirdly, time in the market, focus on having or staying invested in an amount of time of market and rather than timing the market. My friend, timing the market is very stressful, and those who do so are often prone to mood swings at their own peril. But more importantly, while getting the timing correct several times can boost your returns, getting it wrong can easily swing you to the other side as well. Because you don't want to put your retirement at risk, if you really want to play the markets, do so with only money that you can afford to lose, maybe no more than 10% of your investable savings, but keep your core strategy invested in the markets for the long term. We know that this is this each scratch, this itch that we must scratch by, and it's too good to waste the opportunity by not trying to guess the market or even trying to think whether we can do better than the markets. In fact, at MoneyOwl, every year at the year end, we always have a competition to see who is like trying to put in the who is the best market timer, in the sense that they have put in their money the best time in order to gain the highest returns at different parts of the year. All right. So here's a chart, but I want to show this chart to you to prove that the point about getting the timing wrong, getting in and out of the markets at different times. This chart shows the performance of the S&P 500 index over the last 30 years. The S&P 500 index tracks the value of 500 large companies in US and has one of the longest history dating back to 1926. Hence, it is often used as a gauge of the American economy. But more importantly than that, because it has such a long history, we usually use information about S&P 500 to help us understand how stock markets work and to get useful insights about it. Okay, so what does this chart tell us? If you have invested $1,000 in 1990 in the S&P 500 index, this would have grown to more than 17,000 about 30 years later, or a return of close to 10% per annum. However, as we move the chart to the right, if you had been out of the market on the best day of performance, that means among all the how many thousands of days that there were trading days, right? You choose to be out of the market only on that one day where the return was the highest. Your returns actually drop to your portfolio value. Instead of getting 17,000, would have been only $15,000. And if you miss the 5 best days, this drops to 11,000. And if you miss the 25 best days over a 30-year period, your returns drop significantly to only about $4,000, or only a return of about 5% per annum. Talk about the price of having an itchy backside of fingers. It is indeed quite costly. I hope this chart actually convinces you that it isn't just worth the effort and time to time the market, and it's usually more expensive as well as you buy in and out of the markets as well. So as a final point, invest in a portfolio with an asset allocation. That means an allocation between equities and bonds that is suitable for your risk appetite. Equities or shares in companies serves as the main provider of returns in your portfolio, and the bonds as the stabilizer to help you flatten the volatility in your investments. When you are placed on a portfolio that suits your willingness to take risks, you're more likely to stay invested, not time the market, and you can capture market returns in a reliable way. As a comprehensive financial advisor, we do more than just help you with your investments. Through our years of helping Singaporeans plan, we learned that investment planning is really just one part of the entire financial planning equation. Before our clients invest, we want to make sure that their cash flows are healthy and they already have the right insurance in place. This helps them to invest with a peace of mind and to improve their ability to stay invested. Even during market downturns, they don't have to be afraid and withdraw from their investments prematurely because they already have their fundamentals in place. This is one area that sets MoneyOwl apart from many of the robo-advisors that only just focus on investments. So to close this second segment, remember your SRS savings should be invested and made to work harder for your retirement. Don't let inflation erode your wealth away. Okay, at this point of time, let me just take a quick pause to see if there are any questions that I can address. Okay, Mr. Yo, is there a SDIC protection for funds placed with MoneyOwl? This really depends on which instrument they are talking about, because for investments, we don't have SDIC protection because these are investment instruments, and I don't think there's any other investment instruments out there that has SDIC protection. However, if you are talking about retirement income plans, which I mentioned earlier, these are insurance products and they do have such protection around them. All right. Okay. Okay. All right. I can't find any live annuity. Okay, so let me just go next to the third part of my presentation, which is to address those of you who have indicated X in your in the comment box earlier. You're approaching retirement in a few years' time, and you're thinking about how you can actually withdraw from your SRS in a safe way that doesn't that minimizes your tax liabilities. All right. After talking about all the contributions and the uses of SRS savings, let's talk about withdrawals. There are several conditions under which you can withdraw from your SRS, each with its own specific outcome. This table summarizes the impact. If you withdraw before the statutory retirement age, which is the first line, this is the one, the statutory retirement age, which is pegged to your account, let's say 62 years old, you will be subject to 5% penalty of the amount withdrawn, and 100% of the amount withdrawn is taxable. If you withdraw after the retirement age, due in the event of death or on medical grounds, there is no penalty involved, and only 50% of the amount withdrawn would be taxable. For foreigners, you can also make full withdrawal from your SRS with no penalty, as long as you have met the criteria highlighted here in the asterisk. You must have held your SRS account for at least 10 years, and you have not maintained citizenship or PR status for the last 10 years as well. A special note for withdrawal in the event of bankruptcy, while this doesn't require you to pay a 5% penalty, 100% of the amount will be taxable. So this bankruptcy one is a special situation compared to the others. Now let's go through some examples of retirees who are looking to withdraw from their SRS accounts. Now Mr. Tan, fast forward 20 years later, is now 60 years old and he wishes to retire. For him, because he's very eager, right? Instead of waiting till he had crossed the statutory retirement age of 62, he decided to withdraw 100,000 from his SRS to fund his retirement at the age of 60. So immediately he suffers a 5% penalty, which is $5,000, and 100% of the amount withdrawn would be subject to tax. Assuming he has no other income or any other relief applicable, the total tax payable for him works out to be $10,650, or about 10% of the amount that he had withdrawn. Imagine if he found out that he actually only needed to spend about 20K and left the rest of the money in his bank. He would have paid extra taxes for no apparent reason. So even if you should need to withdraw before your retirement age, plan your cash flow wisely and just withdraw what you need. SRS monies can be withdrawn anytime, hence there is no need for you to do advanced withdrawals. Now Mrs. Tan, on the other hand, has now turned 62 years old, and she also decides to withdraw her SRS savings. Because she is doing this after her retirement age, you can see now she doesn't get, she is not slapped with any penalty, and instead of having 100% of the amount withdrawn taxable, only 50% of it is taxable. And she is no longer working or have any other reliefs. So the total amount, the total tax payable for her is only $1,250. Okay, this is she's paying much lesser than her husband. But however, like Mr. Tan, she realizes that she didn't need to spend 100,000 at all. And after withdrawing the money and not spending the rest, she leaves it in the bank, which is also another not a very wise thing to do. So enter Mrs. Lim, her good friend. Like Mrs. Tan, she has passed her retirement age and she wants to withdraw from her SRS. She estimates that she will only need to spend maybe about 40,000 and withdraw what she needs. As only 50% of this is taxable, her taxable income for the year is 20K, assuming she has no other income. As there is, if you recall the marginal, the tax table, income tax table that I shared with you earlier, no tax is payable for income less than 20K. So she's actually able to withdraw all these monies without incurring any tax at all. All right. So you might be thinking, hey, this is a great way for me to avoid paying any taxes entirely on the SRS monies that I'm going to withdraw by only withdrawing $40,000 every year as shown in this table. However, unfortunately, while you are smart, right, so is the government. Under SRS, there is this 10-year withdrawal period, which I think Ivy was talking about. There's this 10-year withdrawal period, which stipulates that the maximum period over which you can spread your withdrawals is 10 years. If you still have remaining balances in your SRS, after the 10th year, 50% of the balance remaining will be reported as taxable income and taxed in the 11th year. So as you can see, while you're able to not pay any taxes on the 400K that you've withdrawn over the first 10 years of withdrawal, in the 11th year, assuming that you still have 100K in your SRS account, 50% of it will be taxable, and the amount of tax payable would be about 1,002, assuming that there is no other income. As such, if you are in a situation where you have more than 400K in your SRS balances, you may want to balance off by withdrawing a bit more every year. A bit more when I'm referring to is more than 40K every year, to be under the lower tax bracket of about 2 to 3.5%, instead of leaving everything to the 11th year to be taxed heavily on 50% of the balances. Okay, with regards to Lai Ping's earlier question, she was asking if there are any annuities that are available that can help you to avoid having to do this. This refers to the last point here that you see. The 10-year period does not apply to investments in life annuities. So long as you continue to receive your annuity streams in perpetuity, the 50% tax concession will apply. Okay, my understanding here is that with one of the insurance companies that we have, the retirement income plan, and they actually do a payouts for life. Even though I would classify this as a life annuity, they actually follow this same treatment. In which case they will still report whatever that is the balance in your surrender value, like the 100%. They will report 50% of the guaranteed surrender value in your policy to the IRAS in the 11th year, and that amount will be taxed. And thereafter, there will be no more tax payable. So any benefits that you subsequently get from that policy is basically tax-free. Okay. So in terms of whether there are other life annuities out there, I thought this product that we had would fall into that category, but apparently our insurance company clarified that it isn't. Perhaps we can continue, if you're really keen on this, one thing that we can help you do is that we can help you to search for such products. You just need to drop us an inquiry and we'll get a client advisor to follow up with you. Now, let me share with you one last example of how you can structure your entire SRS journey now that we've talked about contributions, about growing your savings, as well as withdrawals. Now, assuming you are 40 years old today, you contribute $15,300 to your SRS every year for the next 10 years. Through this process, you actually end up saving $15,000 in taxes in all. And perhaps this might be enough for you to even consider contributing for 11th year, or maybe you can just spend all the money. After attending today's webinar, you realize that it's very foolish to just leave the money in the bank doing nothing. So you decide to invest it with a MoneyOwl diversified portfolio, which returns a market-based return of 6.5%. After 20 years, this grows to 400K by the age of 60 years old. Now you're close to retirement age already, and you want to start working perhaps in the next 5 years' time. So you approach your MoneyOwl client advisor who starts to give you some options. You have two options. You can either start to decumulate from your investments following a withdrawal rule that your advisor can help you with, or you can put that savings into a retirement income plan, which I've talked about, to stream up as a stream of income when you retire. Either way, based on the numbers that I have generated, you can look to receive an income of about 20 to 40K per year for your retirement needs, either for life or for a fixed period, depending on which mode you choose. Whichever mode you choose, all these things can be, everything that I mentioned here in this example can be executed through MoneyOwl's solutions. Couple this with your CPF life payouts of say $2,000 per month. You're sitting on about 4 to 5K retirement income, which while isn't luxurious, isn't basic either. Of course, you can always modify this plan by thinking about contributing to SRS for more years, or even investing cash outside of SRS to help you plan for earlier retirement, because you want to be able to withdraw the money or use the money at an earlier age. Ultimately, how much you can afford to invest today should also be balanced with how much you need to spend for a meaningful and purposeful life, which is why having a financial plan is really critical in helping you make these decisions wisely. This is something that MoneyOwl specializes in through our comprehensive financial planning service, which was launched earlier this year, and it has benefited thousands of Singaporeans as well. So your SRS isn't just about accumulating wealth. As much as it is important to grow your wealth, so is the decumulation journey. How you can, this whole thing talking about how you can reduce your taxes overall, and how you can stretch your savings using some form of decumulation strategy to make sure that you don't outlive it, even as we prepare for retirement that can stretch into 20 to 30 years. Okay, let me see if there is no further questions at this point. So let me just conclude with one last slide. You may be thinking, all right, I'm going to start investing now. But you actually heard that the markets are all-time high, and rather than wait until it has, and you may think that it might be better for you to just wait on the sidelines and wait until the market corrects itself or the market drops. Okay, if this is what you are thinking, I'd like to reassure you with this chart. Okay, this chart looks very scary, right? But let me just explain to you exactly what you're looking at. This is a chart that is made up of many tiny cells. Okay, each cell in this chart actually shows you the annualized return of an investor who has invested in the S&P 500 index since 1926 all the way to present day 2019. Okay, so what you are looking at is hundreds and hundreds of data points for a person who, for investors who have invested every year, 1926, 27, all the way until 2019. For example, maybe if I'm looking at maybe this cell here, okay, this cell here actually represents, for example, this person who has invested in 1926 and the annual returns that he will get after staying invested for say 30 years. If he had instead stayed invested all the way until present day 2019, this would be the returns that he can expect to get. And this number actually averages to be around 10% per annum. And this is actually a pretty decent return, if I should say so myself. So what this tells me is that if I am a 1926 investor and somehow I live a very long life and I stayed invested all these 90 over years, I'm looking at a 10% per year return on my investments, regardless of whatever that I have gone through all these decades. The other thing to take note of is that this chart is also color coded. A dark red cell here represents double-digit negative returns in that particular year. A lighter red represents a single-digit negative return. The dark green here represents a double-digit positive return. The lighter green represents single-digit positive returns. Now, the red segments, as you can see, are only happens in pockets throughout history, starting with the date, and this actually coincides with the major crisis that we have seen. That's the Great Depression in the 1920s, the oil crisis in the 1970s, and the dot-com crash and global financial crisis in the year 2000. So what is the immediate observation that you can make from this chart? First, you can see that there is a lot more green than red. Investing isn't scary, it shouldn't be scary when it's looked through the lens. There is hope. The chances are more people are likely to earn than lose from investing as long as they stay invested. Now, second, if I were to draw a line right here, which is the last point of a red color return that I see, and if I count the number of years here, from when I have no more negative returns throughout all the different investor experience all throughout history, I will realize this works out to be about 15 years. So just now, I think one of the participants was asking me how long is long for me to be able to take some risk and invest in the market. If you can see from this chart, the answer is about 10 to 15 years. The reason why I say 10 to 15 years is because 15 years here is Great Depression, which is really an outlier in the whole history of the financial markets. Something that is closer to home is probably the dot-com crash, and if I actually draw the line and move it further up, it's about 10 years. So if you have at least about 10 years to invest, you can easily reap positive returns from your investment by investing your SRS savings. However, I have to mention that this chart actually is showing a chart that is all equities. That means you're only buying shares. If you actually combine your investment allocation between equities as well as bonds, it is possible for you to still get positive returns with a shorter investment horizon. And you can ask our client advisors or come to our website to learn more about this. So what does this mean for you and me? First, it tells me that whether the market is currently up or currently down has really very little bearing on my future outcome as long as I invest for the long term. In fact, if I were to expand, okay, let me do this thing. In fact, if I were to expand this chart and just to show you the bottom right, I don't know, is it big enough for all of you? But if I were to expand this chart and show you at the bottom, you realize that regardless of whichever year I started investing in and how many years, as long as I stay invested for at least 15 years, my average returns is roughly about 10% all through the different historical events. And that, as I mentioned, is really pretty attractive returns that is sufficient to help us meet our retirement goals. All right. So, however, while I did say that it doesn't matter when you invest, it does matter that you start to invest, because if you think about it, how many 15-year cycles do you really have to ride it out? There is not many at all. And I'm pretty sure for some of our listeners, you may be thinking that, oh, is it really too late for me to start investing already? Do talk to us, speak to our client advisor to find out more, because even though you may be in retirement, as I mentioned earlier, it is possible for you to still invest for a stream of income and focusing on getting a stream of income rather than for capital accumulation at this point of time. All right. So don't wait any further, get started today, and let me just end off with 5 reasons why you should do so. Number 1, open an SRS account, even if it's just $1, to lock in your retirement age today. Number 2, last I checked with the banks, OCBC and DBS, right? When you open an SRS account and you top up with about 10,000, with at least $10,000, they are giving you bonus vouchers. I think in the range of $50 to $100 of cash vouchers, but it's limited to only the first 2,000 or 5,000 people who do so. When you number 3, when you contribute to SRS, you can save up to $7,000 of taxes depending on your nationality and your tax bracket. Number 4, invest your money for a limited time promotion until the end of this year. When you invest your SRS monies with MoneyOwl, you will also get more goodies, which I'll share with you in the next slide. And lastly, don't miss your opportunity to start betting the money, letting the markets grow your retirement nest egg. MoneyOwl portfolios are built on Nobel Prize winning thought. When you invest with us, you are actually investing with thousands of quality and high growth potential companies at value prices. And this comes without any stock picking, market timing, or forecasting. Alternatively, you can also speak with drop us an inquiry and speak with any of our client advisors to learn how you can structure an income stream using our suite of investment or insurance tools. Okay, HSU is asking how young can a person open? 18 years old. You need to be minimally 18 years old to open an SRS account. You know, you want to get your son to open right now, right? Okay, let me see if there's any more. Oh yeah, sorry, I'm supposed to share the goodies. All right, so what is these goodies that I'm talking about? In fact, if you have been looking at the stream that has been running across the commentary that began running across the bottom of the screen, you will know what this goodies is all about. When you invest your SRS funds with MoneyOwl today, from now until the end of the year, you can get up to $200 shopping vouchers from us. This is subject to you staying invested with us for at least 2 years, at least 2 months. And actually, you should stay invested for a very long time now, because that's what I just shared with you, right? But anyway, you just need to stay with us invested with us for at least 2 months. You can get up to $200 of shopping vouchers based on the amount that you have invested. So if let's say you're a new MoneyOwl client, which means that you are not a client, either insurance client, comprehensive financial planning client, or investment client with us, all you have to do is just invest $1,000 with us through your SRS, and you can work after 2 months. You will be entitled to $50 shopping vouchers, 10 to 50K, $100 shopping voucher, 50K and above, $200 shopping voucher. Let me see if there's any other terms and conditions that is attached to this. I think that's about it. Yeah, and these have to be lump sum investments as well. Okay, let me see. Okay, all right. So actually, let me just sum it up, the goodies that you can actually get if you're a first-time SRS investor. You get about $100 from opening your SRS account with any of the 3 local banks, subject to their promotions. You get another $100 investing with MoneyOwl, or $100 to $200 investing with MoneyOwl, and potentially a couple of thousands of dollars in tax savings. So while 2020 may not have been the best year for all of us, you can still make the best of it before the year ends. All right. So I think that if I have no other questions, that is on my panel. I think my colleagues have been very helpful in answering all the questions. Wait, let me see. Is there any questions that haven't been addressed? If don't have, okay, then if that's the case, thank you all of you for being very participative. You recommend to leave the money on SRS account for foreigner after the 10 years minimum period. It really depends on what you're doing with your money, because as I mentioned, the SRS monies are not earning any interest at all. So I assume that when you're asking this question, it's because you are already investing the money and putting it into good use. Otherwise, you should probably be, you should probably definitely, I mean, it's up to you to actually withdraw it, because there is no further benefit for you to do so as well. And I'm also assuming that you're no longer working in Singapore and no longer a tax resident here as well, so you do not benefit from the tax relief that it provides you. Are your funds in SRS covered? I actually answered this question already, Mr. Yo. Are funds in SRS covered by SDIC? Oh, as in if you have just left it, as in whether you have just left it as a bank account? Is that what you mean? Any investment charges? Oh, okay, Godfrey. With regards to your questions, yes, that definitely is investment charges when it comes to investing with MoneyOwl. Our funds are very low cost. We're looking at the total expense ratio between 0.28 to 0.32% per annum. These are the management fees that are paid to the fund manager, which is a dimensional fund advisor in this case, who we work with. And in terms of advisory fees that with MoneyOwl, currently we have also a promotion going on with the advisory fees. No, we have recently repriced our advisory fees as well. So they range between 0.5 to 0.6% per annum. In fact, if you do your calculations, we're actually one of the cheapest. We are one of the cheapest in the markets right now with regards to offering such investments. Idle funds in SRS. Yeah, actually, I do believe SRS monies that are kept in the idle funds, that means in your SRS accounts, they are FDIC covered, because they are, I mean, they're essentially bank account monies. Okay. Do you have any more questions? If we have no more questions, then I will proceed to close this session already. All right. I think, anyway, feel free to continue dropping in your questions. I'll be continuing to check into the comment box and helping to address those questions if you have. As I mentioned as well, do write in to us or call in to us if any of the things that I mentioned to you, yeah, correct, there's only a cap of 75K. So if you're keen to actually find out more about the solutions that I've mentioned, or you'd like to know how you want to structure your retirement planning, yeah, do drop us enquiries, and we can get a client advisor to advise you more on these things. All right, thank you all. You've been really great audiences and very participative, and I wish you all the best, and Merry Christmas and Happy New Year in advance. Thank you very much.